Well, joining us tonight is the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. And Mr. Vice President, it is always great to see you and to have an opportunity to talk with you.
Thank you.
May I start with, first of all, the executive orders, because that is so important to millions of Americans who would have no help whatsoever from the radical Dems. 4 weeks of pure stonewalling, slow rolling, and indifference to the needs of Americans who are hurting. Your thoughts?
Well, what the American people saw this weekend was, once again, the decisive leadership of President Donald Trump. After literally weeks of refusing to come to the table, refusing to negotiate in good faith, when we're seeing our economy beginning to reopen. Last Friday, we saw 1.8 million jobs added to this economy, but there's still many millions of Americans that needed payroll tax relief, that needed an extension of unemployment insurance, and yet the Democrats were willing to let those very things fall by the wayside as they continue to advance their big government, massive spending bill that Speaker Pelosi passed many weeks ago on Capitol Hill. But the president said, enough is enough. He took executive action. We were deferring the payroll tax through the end of this year. That's money in the pocket for working Americans. Right. But then he also used his authority as president to extend unemployment insurance benefits in a fiscally responsible way. We're asking states to pay for 25%, but it's $400 a week more that people who haven't found work yet in this economy can have. That plus help for young people going to school, student loan relief, eviction relief for working Americans. This is a president that said while the radical left continues to dominate the Democratic Party, the Democrats continue to play games on Capitol Hill, President Trump's going to take action to put America first.
And taking action, as you say, to put Americans first, how soon will it be that they will be getting actual relief? How soon will people have money? How soon will they have help in deferring or perhaps giving them time to catch up on payments that would make evictions and foreclosures a moot point?
Well, the president's executive action about evictions, about student loans takes effect the moment that he signs it. But today, on our weekly conference call with all the nation's governors, we assured them that the unemployment insurance benefits should be being implemented immediately. We also told them that they can use roughly $80 billion in CARES Act funding that hasn't been drawn down by states yet to pay their portion of the extension of unemployment insurance. Look, a lot of Americans are hurting, despite the fact that we had lost 22 million jobs at the height of this pandemic, and as of last week have added 9 million Americans back to the roles of working people in this country. There's many more Americans that need help. The president said we're not going to wait on Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer anymore. We're going to extend unemployment insurance benefits. The Department of Labor and Treasury are working to make that a reality, and we're working to put into effect that effort to defer payroll tax collections to the end of this year. Again, this is just another example of where President Trump said, look, if you're not willing to come to the table and negotiate in a way that puts Americans first, we're going to take action so that Americans cannot be used as pawns in the Democrats' effort to push another massive big government spending bill.
You know, Mr. Vice President, we're looking at cities that are erupting in violence, continue to erupt in many cases, whether it's Chicago or Portland. And some of those states have got Democrat city councils as well as mayors and Democratic governors. And I was just thinking, as you were talking, do you hear from any of those Democrat governors saying, no, Mr. Vice President, tell Mr. Trump that we don't want the money for our citizens. We don't want immediate help for the people who are hurting. Do you ever hear them saying, no, please just follow along with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and we can catch up with you maybe in September or October?
Lou, that'd be a first. I mean, you know, I used to be a governor, and I respect the role that governors play and have played, especially throughout this coronavirus pandemic. And I think what I consistently hear from governors is how grateful they are that this president has literally spared no expense. We've surged billions of dollars to our states, to our to our wonderful healthcare workers. We provided the kind of resources in medicines and PPE and testing to meet this moment. And what I heard today on that conference call with governors is that they want to see the Congress act. I mean, look, President Trump's made it clear, in addition to the executive action that he's taken, we'd like to send another round of checks to the American people. Remember, it was $1,200 per American, $3,400 per family. The president's very open to doing just that. We want to get more support for businesses, the Paycheck Protection Program, and other programs that have allowed businesses to weather the storm of the coronavirus. And we want to get our schools open, Lou, and that's why the president's called for $105 billion to make it possible to open up our K-12 schools, our universities. And we said to the governors today, it's time for them to pick up the phone and call Nancy Pelosi and call Chuck Schumer and tell them to get off the dime, get back to the table, and let's get a deal done. But, not the kind of deal that Speaker Pelosi passed earlier in the House of Representatives. I heard the other day that the bill that they passed actually mentions marijuana more than it mentions jobs. And the American people don't want some pork barrel bill coming out of the Congress when we've got real needs for working families. We've got needs to get our schools open. And we're literally calling on every governor, especially Democrat governors across the country, to call on members of their party in Congress to say, let's get to the table, let's get a deal done that puts Americans first.
Well, we're hearing words that some of these governors are deeply disappointed that Schumer and Pelosi haven't been able to get them a bailout for their basically bankrupt systems. This administration is not going to provide that kind of relief, are you, if there is to be a later negotiation?
Look, the president's made it very clear there's going to be no bailout for badly run states in this country. I mean, the truth is that many states run by Democrats for decades have run up massive deficits, massive debt. And I heard the other day that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are calling for $1 trillion to our states, when in fact, literally, we've got on the table, more than $100 billion for education, another $100 billion to help our states. But President Trump has made it clear we're not going to let liberal Democrats and the radical left use the coronavirus pandemic to bail out states that have been running deficits and debt for decades. We're going to stand up for taxpayers, stand up for fiscal responsibility, even while we get resources to states at the point of the need. One of the points the Treasury Secretary made today to the governors was, we've literally been calling governors to ask specifically what they need to implement a back-to-school plan. And the president's request for $105 billion is specifically tailored to the actual per-student cost of returning to school in a safe and responsible way. But no bailouts, Lou. This isn't a blank check for badly run states, and especially those badly run states run by liberal Democrats for decades.
What do you put the odds at right now that governors across the country will join with administration and move to open up those schools? Because whether it's Anthony Fauci, you name it, people from the left, medical experts are saying we need to open those schools. There is a fear of a lost generation here. If we're going to continue this, what's your sense of the odds?
Lou, we got to get our kids back to school. I mean, the experts, left, right, and center, have all recognized that distance learning is no replacement for in the classroom, in-person learning. We don't want our kids to fall behind academically, but what the American people also recognize is, kids with special needs, kids with learning disabilities, they get those services at school, and tens of millions of American kids get food and nutritional supplements at school. And so there's far beyond academic. There are real costs to America's kids, and that doesn't even take into account the cost on working families. Many governors, even some Democrat governors, are now beginning to announce that they support a return to back to school because they recognize that for an awful lot of Americans, if their kids can't go back to school, they can't go back to work. I heard a number the other day that only 20% of single parents in America can telework. That means 80% of single parents to go back to work have to go back to work. They got to have their kids back in school. That's why President Trump, from very early on, has made it clear we got to get our kids back. And just so everybody knows, the CDC issued a series of new guideposts a couple of weeks ago, but the first thing they issued was a paper about how it is in the public health interest of our kids to be back in school. So the CDC says for the health of our kids, we say for their academic health, for their future, and for working families, we got to get our kids back to school. It's one more reason why the Democrats on Capitol Hill need to come back to the table. We want to make sure our states have the resources as well as the guidance to safely reopen our school. They can. We're going to continue to stand for it and fight for it on behalf of working families everywhere.
Well, good for you, and the American people desperately need the leadership of this administration to make this happen. Do you have any impression, besides the fact that Dick Durbin is beginning to agree with you on a host of issues, it seems, at least informally, and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are saying maybe they do want to talk now? Do you think they're getting the idea that they have been running here for weeks a video of a elect Trump-Pence 2020 campaigns? Because when you see everything that they're doing, trying to keep schools closed, letting violence run rampant in the cities that are so devastated by decades of Democrat-run administrations in their municipalities, the payoff is pretty ugly, pretty violent. And why would anyone in the world want a Democrat in the White House?
Well, you know, the choice in this election has never been clearer, and the stakes have never been higher. Meaning President Donald Trump, you have someone who's kept more promises than he made to the American people. Rebuild our military, revive the economy with less taxes, less regulation, fought for free and fair trade, appointed conservatives to our courts. But Joe Biden and the radical left and the party of Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi is all about taking the country all the way back in the opposite direction. More defense cuts, $4 trillion in higher taxes, a $2 trillion Green New Deal, economic surrender to China. I mean, we heard this weekend from Speaker Pelosi, she actually said that China would prefer Joe Biden to win the upcoming election. And that's because no one's been tougher on China than President Donald Trump. But in one issue after another, the American people are tired of the politics on Capitol Hill, playing politics in the midst of this pandemic. And I truly do believe that come November 3rd, we're going to win a great victory when we win 4 more years for President Donald Trump. But I also believe the American people see what a Democrat majority in the House of Representatives means. And I think we've got a fighting chance not only to reelect a Republican Senate, but to elect a new Republican majority in the House of Representatives and move our nation forward.
The Attorney General over this weekend, making a comment about Black Lives Matter protests, the violence that we're seeing in those Democratic-run cities. I want to just run, if I may, a soundbite for the audience to show what the Attorney General of the United States now says about Black Lives Matter and the movement that they have unleashed on the country. It is not failing by any stretch of the imagination. It is having great influence, at least within certain communities and certain age groups. Let's roll that from Attorney General William Barr, please.
They are a revolutionary group that is interested in some form of socialism, communism. They're essentially Bolsheviks. Their tactics are fascistic. It's a new form of urban guerrilla warfare.
And this president has, weeks and weeks and weeks ago, been saying we have to control this violence and establish law and order in these Democrat-run cities. The Democrats aren't doing it, and the national left-wing media is excoriating the president because he wants to preserve the lives of citizens, protect communities, and establish law and order. Where do we go from here? Where this president has proved his leadership, this is a tough issue, as you well know. Where does the administration go with this now?
Well, President Trump has no higher priority than the safety and security of the American people, Lou. And I want to promise you that we're going to continue to surge resources and personnel into cities that are deeply impacted, like Chicago, Seattle, Portland, and other communities in New York City, where literally the local leadership has utterly failed to quell the violence on the streets. Now, that being said, all along the way, remember when shortly after the murder of George Floyd on the streets of Minneapolis, we saw the mayhem there. President Trump called on the governor of Minnesota to deploy the National Guard. He said, either you do it or we will. Governor of Minnesota did just that and brought peace to the streets. He took a strong stand. We said we're not going to let Antifa and these radical riotous protesters destroy the federal courthouse in Portland, Oregon. We deployed federal personnel there to protect the courthouse, stand against the rioters. He made it clear to the governor of Oregon that either she steps up to secure the streets of Portland or we would. And the governor of Oregon did that. They deployed local law enforcement. They deployed the state police. The rioting is continued, and we'll continue to call on local officials to do their job, and most importantly, let the courageous men in law enforcement at the state and local level in their communities do their job. But make no mistake about it, whether it's Operation Legend, where we're deploying federal resources from the Justice Department, but we are not going to stand by while these rioters and these radical leftists tear apart our cities. And this president's prepared to take action necessary if fails. If states and local communities fail to act to protect their citizens, we will.
Vice President Mike Pence, always great to sit down and talk with you, and appreciate your time, sir.